Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so that you know when live we go. Hello and welcome to Rao's IAS DNS session. Here we are going to discuss today's newspaper, The Hindu, Delhi edition dated 7 March 2021. We are going to pick up articles important for civil service examination and discuss them as per the demand of the exam. The articles that we are going to take up for discussion have been tabulated in front of you and the timestamping for the same has been given in the description section. The first article that we are going to take up for discussion is from page number 13, the Science and Tech page of today's newspaper. Slowing currents. This is in context of slowing speed of the Gulf Stream in Atlantic Ocean. This is seriously very important for exam. In the syllabus of GS paper 1 under geography section, you will find the topic salient feature of world's physical geography. And then you will find changes in critical physical feature and the effect of such changes. The effect of change in the speed of Gulf Stream is going to be far and wide. UPSC in 2015 has asked a question on ocean current. Also in the mains examination of the same year, UPSC again asked question on ocean current. So ocean current in general is very important topic for your physical geography for GS paper 1 and also for prelims examination. It becomes even more important in the context of climate change, how ocean currents are getting affected by climate change and further what impact it will have on the climate and weather pattern globally. The thing is that scientists from Britain, Ireland, Germany have recently found out that the Gulf Stream system has been slowing down. They are presently the slowest of last 1000 years. Although the direct data collection began in 2004, but the scientists have used certain modeling and indirect measurement method to establish that the Gulf Stream has slowed down by about 15% and is slowest since the last ice age. But this fact is not surprising. Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change IPCC has in its report already concluded that the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation, which is popularly called as Gulf Stream, has weakened relative to 1850-1900. This 1850 is the time period of mini ice age. And there are various modeling techniques that predicted that the Gulf Stream is going to slow down. And it is slowing down. Another independent research work about which we will talk about later in the discussion, Beaufort Sea. This has gained 2/5 more volume of fresh water in last 20 years. And this water has been overflowing to other seas like Labrador Sea and ultimately into the Atlantic Ocean. So to begin with, now we know that the Gulf Stream is slowing down and the Arctic seas are gaining fresh water. And together these two can change the weather pattern globally. See, Gulf Stream, as you can see in the map here, is one part of the global ocean conveyor belt. There are many ocean currents in this conveyor belt and the conveyor belt altogether is extremely important. These ocean currents and wind currents, they maintain stability in the climate, in the weather pattern, in the temperature differentials all around the world. If substantial change happens to the circulation of ocean current, then the entire stability of global weather pattern will collapse. Ocean currents are extremely important for our climate. Ocean currents, as you can see in this map, connects 4 out of the 5 oceans of the world. And they transfer heat, they transfer salinity, they transfer mass, they transfer nutrient from one ocean to other, from one part of the world to other. And hence they are extremely important for global climatic stability. This movement of ocean current is also called as thermohaline circulation. Thermo is for temperature and haline is for the salt content of water, the salinity. Now we are just getting started up. There are two things that decide movement of ocean current. One is temperature, the other is salinity of the water. The temperature and salinity are the two most important determinant that dictates or decides the movement of water throughout the ocean and hence the pattern of this thermohaline circulation. There is no doubt that the wind movement, the circulation of wind, that also helps in the movement of ocean current. But density of water is a better and more important determinant. Density of water will be decided by the temperature of water and salinity of water. We will talk specifically about Gulf Stream and not much of other ocean current in this discussion. Gulf Stream begins in this equatorial region. The water here is hotter because of higher insolation, and southeast trade winds are flowing in this region. Remember, for trade winds or for winds, the name comes from the direction from which wind is coming. The wind is going in the northwest direction but is coming from southeast, so it is called as southeast trade wind. For ocean currents, the name is given according to the direction it is going to and not coming from. For wind, the name is given as per the direction it is coming from. So wind going in this direction is actually southeast trade wind. Trade wind because it is in this region of equatorial region. So southeast trade wind will be pushing the water in this region northwest. And hence a northwest current will start flowing. It will reach to the Gulf of Mexico. Since it's a compact small water mass here, the heating will be very intense. And the water will reach around 30 degrees Celsius in Gulf of Mexico. By now we have moved to the other side of equator, and now the wind is southwest and the Gulf Stream will now be moving northwest. This is how it begins. But this is not how it ends. Towards the mid of Atlantic Ocean, there is bifurcation. One of the stream goes towards the Canary Ocean current, flowing along the western coast of Africa, and the other, which will now be called as North Atlantic Drift, will be moving towards Norway, touching the coast of Britain, Western Europe. There is a third stream moving towards north, not shown here, and that meets with the cold current coming from the top, this Labrador current. Now understand one thing, the water mass that began its movement from the equatorial region will have to face evaporation throughout its journey. This ocean current will be moving like a ribbon of water, a separate body mass maintaining its composition. So throughout its flow, the salt content of the water is going to increase because the water is going to face evaporation, but the salt is not going to get evaporated. It's going to remain in the water mass. So composition wise, the percentage content of salt will keep on increasing. And temperature? Temperature will keep on decreasing. By the time the ocean current reaches here, it will be cold. And the salt percentage will be high. Density, what will happen to density? When the temperature is higher, the density is less. Since the temperature has decreased considerably, the density will increase because of this factor. And because the percentage composition of salt has increased, the density will again increase because of this factor. So the density of water around this region will be much higher. And you know, if density of a mass increases, in this case the water mass, it will sink down. So when the Gulf Stream reaches the coast of Norway, it starts sinking down like this. If observed from the ocean floor, it's a huge waterfall. The water is dropping by from the top of the ocean to the ocean floor. The width of this waterfall is 15 kilometers and it falls down to the range of 4,000 meters. The total water falling through this waterfall is more than the flow of all the rivers on the earth combined. There is an intense downward mass flow in this region. And when there is higher mass flow, you will understand that the conveyor belt will be pulled forward. So more and more water from the equatorial region will be coming to the higher latitude and will sink down. This water sinks down and then come up again at the top of the ocean on lower latitude. This is how this part of the ocean current, this part of the entire ocean conveyor belt works. Before we move forward to understand as to why this part of the conveyor belt is slowing down, let's see this question from 2012 prelims examination. The question was, which of the above factors influence the ocean currents? Options are rotation of the earth, air pressure and wind, density of the ocean water, revolution of the earth. When we began understanding the origin of Gulf Stream, we saw that it is under the influence of wind that the movement of water mass begins. And then the ocean current takes a turn because the wind has taken a turn. And wind has taken the turn because of Coriolis force, because of rotation of earth. Because of rotation of Earth, a pseudo force comes into picture which is called as Coriolis force, and it turns the moving wind and moving water to right in the northern hemisphere and to the left in southern hemisphere. And we have seen here that because of increased density, the water mass starts sinking. So definitely the rotation of the Earth creates Coriolis force. It turns the wind, it turns the water, it has an effect on ocean current. Air pressure and wind are also having very important effect on direction and the speed of the ocean current. Density of ocean water actually is extremely important for thermohaline circulation, but the revolution of Earth as such has nothing to do with the pattern and movement and the speed of ocean currents. It's the rotation, not the revolution. So the answer would be option B. Then in 2013, UPSC has asked a question in prelims. The most important fishing grounds of the world are found in regions where? The answer is warm and cold oceanic currents meet. If you see in this map, the cold Labrador current is coming from the higher latitude. It meets the Gulf Stream in this region. And this region is one of the most famous fishing ground in the world. The reason is warm current coming from the equatorial region brings lots of nutrients. And when cold and warm current mixes, it creates the temperature that is very enabling for growth of fishes. So that temperature condition that is built here, along with the presence of nutrient, very helpful for breeding of fishes, and hence these regions become very important fishing grounds. Now let's come to understand as to why the Atlantic meridional overturning circulation is slowing down. And now it also must be very clear to you as to why we are calling it Atlantic meridional overturning circulation. Because the water here has overturned from top to the bottom and then back to the top. And that has happened almost in the same meridian in the Atlantic Ocean. And hence the name Atlantic meridional overturning circulation. The question is why this or the Gulf Stream is slowing down. The answer to that we have already discussed. When the current was sinking down, it was creating a huge mass flow. And this mass flow was pulling the rest of the ocean current towards this region. There was mass flow. Why? Because there was high density here. Why? Because the temperature was less and the density was high. And the salt content was high. The salinity was high. Meaning it was cold and salty. If you change this condition, if the coldness decreases, or if the saltiness decreases, then both of them will decrease the density. If the density will be decreased, then sinking will be decreased. And hence the pulling up of the Gulf Stream will be less. So the flow will be decreased. Now it is simple for you and it is very intuitive for you to understand how the coldness and the saltiness is decreasing. As the answer is to most of the problem, the same is here, global warming. Because of global warming, the Arctic region is becoming warm. Greenland is melting. Now there is higher rainfall in the region. And because of the melting of glaciers, Greenland, the flow of fresh water into the northern seas is increasing. Water is flowing to such a great extent, as we have talked before in the beginning, that water from the Beaufort Sea, passing the archipelagos of Canada, has been coming down to Labrador Sea. So the temperature is getting increased. The water in this region is becoming less cold and rainfall is increasing. Flow of fresh water because of melting of glaciers is increasing. So the salinity will decrease and both of them will decrease the density and hence the overturning will be decreased. So the circulation will decrease and the speed will slow down. What's even more important to understand and anticipate is the impact of slowing down of the Gulf Stream. Because the Gulf Stream reaches to the Norwegian coast, it crosses the Britain coast, the western coast of Europe. This entire region is 7 degrees Celsius hotter than what ideally it would have been by the virtue of lying at this latitude. Norway is at very high latitude. So is Britain and most of the Western European region. But if you look at the temperature map, look at this region of Britain, Western Europe, they are not cold. If you compare to other regions of United States at the same latitude, they in fact lies in the hotter region. The Norwegian coast, surprisingly, even at lying at this high latitude, they are not very cold. If you compare this from other region on the western side. So the Norwegian port actually work all round the year. There are lush green fields in the Western Europe, even in Britain, which otherwise would have never been possible. And all of that is why? Because of the North Atlantic drift, which emanates from the Gulf Stream. If the Gulf Stream is becoming slower, meaning less water is going to reach to this region. With less water will come less heat, and hence the temperature will go down in this region. You know, Gulf Stream carries enormous amount of heat. Heat equivalent to what will be created by millions of nuclear reactors. The flow of water in Gulf Stream is 15 times more than Amazon River, and hence rightly it is called as a heat pump of the earth. So slowing down of Gulf Stream, which has slowed down by around 15%, further slowing down will have disastrous impact. And scientists have estimated if it goes down to 30%, it will become completely unstable. So water from Gulf Stream 100-200 years down the line might stop reaching to this height. The effect is going to be on both sides of Atlantic, not just on the eastern side, but on the western side as well. On the western side of Atlantic, meaning at the eastern coast of US, there too effect is going to be disastrous. See, in the beginning we have talked about that the Gulf Stream after the Gulf of Mexico takes northwestern direction. This happens under the influence of trade wind, which from southeast trade wind starts to become southwest trade wind. But apart from that, there is another factor as well, the effect of Coriolis force. Coriolis force depends on largely two things. One is the latitude. At equator, the Coriolis force is 0. At the pole, the effect of Coriolis force is highest. But apart from that, Coriolis force also depends on velocity. When velocity or speed decreases, Coriolis force also decreases. So if air current or ocean current is moving with higher speed, then the bending will also be higher. If it is moving with lower speed, then the bending will be lower. So if the Gulf Stream speed decreases, then its bending will also decrease. Meaning now it will divert less from the eastern coast of US. And if that diversion is less, then piling up of water will be more towards the eastern coast of US. If hot water is piling up, the chances of flooding, the chances of cyclone will be higher. The third effect that already has been observed and documented is that of cold blob. See, if you look at the heat map of this region, you will see this patch which is being observed as colder. If the flow of Gulf Stream decreases in this region, then the heat pump will become less effective. Less of the heat will be transferred from the equatorial region to the higher latitude. So the certain region in midway will be observed to be colder than ideally what it would have been. And if these are the patches of cold blob being developed, then the entire temperature stability, the climatic stability, the weather pattern stability is going to be collapsed. An unpredictable weather pattern, cyclone, sea level rise, anything can be observed. Since in the beginning we saw the global conveyor belt, they are made up of individual ocean currents. So effect on one ocean current is bound to have effect on the entire conveyor belt. We have seen that one arm of the Gulf Stream actually feeds into the Canary Current that is flowing along the western coast of Africa. It is relatively colder current because the hot current that began from the equatorial region now has moved to a higher latitude and is coming down from higher latitude to lower latitude. So it's a cold current marked in blue. If the Gulf Stream slows down and the overturning that we have talked about in this region decreases, then more water from the Gulf Stream will actually be flowing in this region towards the Canary Current. And if the flow of cold current in this region increases, then the chances of precipitation will further decrease. So the Sahara region in northern Africa will further become drought prone. This will be one immediate impact of slowing down of Gulf Stream on another ocean current and hence the associated geographical impact. How this butterfly effect will lead to a total catastrophe, that is still a matter of research. But definitely the slowing down of Gulf Stream has raised alarm bell for whole of humanity. There is an article on page number 7. 3-member expert panel takes stock of turtle conservation. The turtle here is olive ridley turtle. The High Court of Odisha has taken suo motu action and constituted a 3-member panel to assess the measures taken for the conservation of endangered olive ridley turtle. The suo motu action of the court was based on an online environment magazine report which reported that 800 olive-red turtle has died till the end of January. The report was published on 4th February due to the negligence of a state forest and fisheries department. Then on February 23rd, the court took the suo motu action and tasked the committee to look into the measures being taken for conservation of olive-red turtle in Gahirmatha Marine Sanctuary. See, in the Constitution of India, there is no special provision for court to take suo motu cognizance. The Supreme Court and High Court in India taking suo motu action is part of judicial activism. It draws its basis from Article 32 and Article 226 of Indian Constitution, which are meant to give right to constitutional remedy to citizens. It is from these articles that the concept of public interest litigation (PIL) began in India. And taking it forward, the courts can also not take suo motu cognizance, drawing its power from Article 32 and Article 226. The rationale behind taking these suo motu action is the court must ensure that justice is delivered to everyone, even to those people who might not be able to afford it. So the court taking the suo motu action will deliver the justice even without the person concerned or the living being concerned not coming to the court. Now let's quickly talk about olive-red turtle from the perspective of prelims examination. First of all, olive-red turtles are the smallest of all turtles and they are the most abundant. They inhabit the warm waters of Pacific, Atlantic and Indian Oceans. Like most of the turtles, they are carnivores. Turtles can be carnivores, omnivores or herbivores, but mostly they are either carnivores or omnivores. Turtles spend most of the time in water. Tortoise, on the other hand, spend most of the time on land. And they, on the other hand, are herbivores. UPSC has asked a question in the prelims examination of 2019. Consider the following statements. Some species of turtle are herbivores. And then it went on to ask some species of fish are herbivores, some species of marine mammals are herbivores, some species of snakes are viviparous. We have just discussed that turtles mostly are carnivores or omnivores and mostly they spend their time in water. Tortoise, on the other hand, they are herbivores and they spend most of the time on land. But the thing about prelims examination you have to learn is extreme statements are wrong. If I say all turtles are carnivores or omnivores, that obviously will be a wrong statement. The opposite of that will be true and the opposite of that is this. Some species of turtles are herbivores. There is so much diversity. Maybe some turtle at some stage of their life are herbivores. That will make this statement correct. In fact, all the statements given here are correct. One of the turtles found in India, green turtles, they at the latter stage of their life are herbivores. The turtle will be carnivores or herbivores, that will depend upon the jaw shape and jaw size. And that changes over the period of time. Olive-red turtle are listed as vulnerable in the IUCN Red List. In the beginning, I read that the court has set up the committee to look into the measures taken for conservation of endangered olive-red turtle. Often this confusion arises. Endangered does not mean the category endangered in IUCN Red List. Endangered here is used in a general sense that it is endangered to a certain degree. And if to a lesser degree it could be near threatened, to a greater degree it will be vulnerable, still greater degree endangered, still greater degree critically endangered. So you have to remember that in the IUCN Red List, olive-red turtle has been categorized as vulnerable. And it's there in the Appendix 1 of CITES and Schedule 1 of Wildlife Protection Act 1972. The most characteristic feature of olive-red turtle is its unique mass nesting. It is called as arybada. Thousands of females come together on the same beach to lay eggs. Although the nesting site for olive-red turtle is all along the Odisha coast, but there are certain areas which are important and they are famous for mass nesting. And they are at the mouth of three rivers, River Dharma, River Devi and Rushi Kulia River. And at the mouth of River Dharma, there is Gahirmatha Marine Sanctuary. This entire region of wetland formed by these three rivers has three important protected areas, Bhitarkanika National Park, Bhitarkanika Wildlife Sanctuary and Gahirmatha Marine Sanctuary. Olive-red turtles, they are poached for their meat, for their shell, their leather, their eggs. But the most severe threat they face is the accidental killing through the entanglement in trawl nets. And to reduce such accidental killing, the Odisha government has made it mandatory for trawls to use turtle excluder devices. It's a net specially designed for an exit cover which allows the turtle to escape while retaining the rest of the catch. You must also know that altogether there are 5 species of sea turtle known to inhabit Indian coastal water, and apart from olive-ridley turtle, the other 4 are green turtle, hawksbill turtle, loggerhead turtle and leatherback turtle. And except for the loggerhead turtle, the remaining 4 species nest along Indian coast. This news is from page number, I don't remember, but definitely from today's newspaper. The title of the article is, Now a Help Desk for Transgenders. The Cyberabad Police in Telangana has inaugurated a transgender community desk. It is said to be the first of its kind, gender-inclusive community policing. In community policing, there is participation of society, community in policing services, and there is a link between community and police department. The person who acts as the link is called as police liaison. With the help of this police liaison and a transgender person, this transgender community desk will operate. In the Cyberabad Police Commissionerate, this desk will act as a focal point for all the grievance redressal among the transgender community. And in partnership with Department of Women and Child Welfare and District Legal Service Authority, the desk will provide other services as well, like soft skill training, job placement, some kind of referral linkages given to transgender persons. This news can be looked at from various perspectives. First, from the perspective of vulnerable section as part of syllabus of GS paper 2 under social justice. You can also look at it from the perspective of community policing, which is an important element in the overall police reform agenda. You must also use this news as an example or somewhere as a case study for improving the condition of vulnerable sections, in particular transgenders. This is how the vulnerable sections can be streamlined and their welfare can be institutionalized. The issues related with transgender have been covered already multiple times in the DNS. So here I would like to take up a small discussion on community policing. Community policing is exactly what the name suggests. It is the policing service in association, in participation, in cooperation with the community. The police department and the cooperating citizens, they work together in creative manner in special problem-solving approach to address the contemporary community problems. The first and foremost thing that community policing does is to reduce the trust deficit, increase the social capital of the police department and in general that of the entire administration. Under the community policing scheme, the police essentially necessarily must have to work with the members of community. It increases the effectiveness of police service because the community at large can actually decide what kind of policing service will be given to them, which will in turn help in improving the accountability of police department. Community policing as such is not a new concept in India. In fact, in ancient time, policing had the community orientation. Since the Maurya era, we have references of community policing where special members of community participated with the specialized military or the police department in the preventive, investigative and prosecuting activities. In the medieval time, a village chief called as Mukkadam or the Sarpanch, they used to work as police officer and used to maintain law and order with the help of village community. And at the upper levels, at the district levels, officers called as Muhasil or Gumashtha, they were representatives of Fauzdar, the administrative head, Khwaja, the head accountant, and Musarrif, the auditor. Muhasil or Gumashtha used to work with these higher officers to help in community policing. And then there were Chaukidars or village watchmen who acted as liaison, the link between the police department and community. Then during the time of British, after the changes that Lord Cornwallis made, law and order passed into the hands of zamindars. And British also introduced uniform police force headed by Daroga Babu. The Darogas were made responsible to district judges, and community policing, whatsoever relevance it had till that time, was completely lost. Then after independence, policing, law and order, they became state subject. And various states made effort to revive community policing. For example, West Bengal had a program called as Village Resistance Group that were developed to deal with dacoits in the rural areas. Similarly, in Gujarat and Maharashtra, community policing program was called as Gram Rakshak Dal. Karnataka actually passed a legislation, Karnataka Village Defence Parties Act of 1964. Although there are multiple benefits of community policing, but in many states, it is not taken up very enthusiastically. Perhaps there are some concerns regarding community policing. If you have read about it already, if not, then please read about it and do comment some of the concerns that you think are there with the concept of community policing. The next article we are going to discuss is this: only NRI quota seats for OCI card holders. Recently, Ministry of Home Affairs has given series of clarification and guidelines concerning the rights of overseas citizens of India, OCI. These clarifications guidelines have come in the backdrop of a judgment of Karnataka High Court. Already in March 2019, Ministry of Home Affairs clarified that students with OCI cards had parity with NRIs, non-resident Indians, and they can lay claim only on the NRI quota seats. But then in December 2020, the Karnataka High Court directed that students under OCI category, they must be considered as citizens of India for admission to professional courses, and asked the state government to admit them to undergraduate professional courses including engineering, medical, dental, everything, even under the government and institutional quotas, and not to restrict their admissions only to the NRI quota. But again, through the March 4 notification, Ministry of Home Affairs has reiterated that OCI card holders will have parity with NRIs, and they can be admitted to professional institutions only against NRI quota. So the OCI card holders are not eligible for admission, exclusively reserved for Indian citizens. In this context, from the exam perspective, let us understand who are overseas citizens of India and what are their rights. First of all, there is no constitutional provision directly mentioning about overseas citizens of India. Citizenship in Indian Constitution, as you would know, has been dealt from Article 5 through Article 11. However, this part only identifies the persons who became citizens of India on the commencement of the Constitution. But this part also empowers the Parliament to enact a law concerning the matter of citizenship. And accordingly, the Parliament enacted Citizenship Act 1955. And in 2005, this act was amended and provision related with overseas citizens of India were inserted under Section 7A. Then in 2015, the category person of Indian origin and overseas citizen of India were merged. The basic point of creating a category overseas citizen of India was to meet the demand of many Indian diaspora of dual citizenship. But India, as you would know, has no provision of dual citizenship. But to engage Indian diaspora and benefit mutually, we came up with the concept of overseas citizen of India and made available to them many rights that are enjoyed by Indian citizens. Section 7A of Citizenship Act 1955 gives the criteria, the conditions which have to be fulfilled for a person to get OCI card. And those conditions are very broad. Any person who is citizen of any other country but was a citizen of India at the time of or at any later time after the commencement of Constitution can apply for OCI card. Similarly, any person who is citizen of another country but was eligible to become a citizen of India at the time of commencement of Constitution. Similarly, any person who is presently citizen of another country but belonged to a territory that became part of India after 15th August 1947. Or any person who is a child or a grandchild of above mentioned people. But there is a rider. If the applicant for the OCI card had ever been citizen of Pakistan or Bangladesh, then he or she will not be eligible to be registered as OCI. Being OCI entails many rights. First of all, the person will have multiple entry, multi-purpose, lifelong visa, allowing them to visit India at any point in time for any length of time for any purpose. But remember, they need a visa. because they are not citizen of India. At all Indian international airports, OCI cardholders are provided with special immigration counters and they are exempted from police reporting as generally the immigrants are required to. And if a person has been registered as OCI for a period of 5 years, then he or she is eligible to apply for Indian citizenship. OCI cardholders can open special bank account and hence they can also have permanent account number card, PAN card. They can buy any non-farm property in India. They can exercise the ownership right on such property. In fact, the OCI cardholders have all the economic, financial and educational rights as Indian citizens. But they cannot have agricultural or plantation properties. Also, very important to remember, OCI cardholders cannot exercise voting right in India. They are not the voters under Representation of People Act 1951. They can also not hold any employment under the Government of India. They cannot hold any constitutional office. They cannot be president, vice president, prime minister, they cannot be MP, MLA, nothing. And they need permission to go to restricted areas. Compared to overseas citizens of India, NRIs have lot many rights because NRIs, remember, are actually citizens of India. They are non-resident Indian. NRI is any person who is holding Indian passport but ordinarily spends most of the time overseas. NRI virtually enjoys all the benefits given to Indian citizen unless some things are mentioned by notification by Ministry of Home Affairs. So NRIs will have full voting rights. Overseas citizen of India does not have voting rights. NRIs can stand for public office, they can purchase agricultural land and they can conduct research work without any prior permission. These things cannot be done by overseas citizen of India. So these are the things that you must remember regarding OCI and also NRI. With this, we complete the discussion for today. Now sit back straight and answer a few questions. I am going to take a speed test. It's going to be in the form of true or false. I'll read the statement, you listen to it carefully and come up with the answer within 5 seconds. So take it very seriously, summon all your attention and check what you have learned in last 35 minutes. First statement is, the main reason for the formation of African desert belt is the influence of warm ocean currents. This is an incorrect statement. We have seen during the discussion that this Sahara belt is desert prone because it is under the influence of cold ocean current, Canary current. Similarly, Atacama, if you see in this region, it's under the influence of cold ocean current, Peru current. If you see western coast of Australia, it's under the influence of cold ocean current, Western Australia current. The warm ocean currents actually has higher moisture. It is the cold ocean current that does not bring moisture, does not shed rain. Statement 2 is, Coriolis force depends on velocity. Absolutely correct statement. We have discussed that when the Gulf Stream will slow down, Coriolis force will decrease and its deflection towards right, because it is in northern hemisphere, will also decrease. So more water now will go to the eastern coast of United States and it will become more flood and cyclone prone. The third statement is, olive ridley turtle is listed as endangered in the IUCN Red List. You'll get this right within 2 seconds, I guess. It's an incorrect statement. The IUCN Red List status is vulnerable. Fourth statement for you, mass nesting of olive ridley turtle occurs all over the Odisha coast. The nature of a statement is such, it's sounding extreme. All over Odisha coast, it has to be incorrect. We have seen that nesting of olive ridley turtle happens all over the Odisha coast, but mass nesting happens at the mouth of river Rishikelia, river Devi and river Dhamra. The fifth statement is, Mukkadam in the medieval period was village headman and they also did policing service. Yes. If you can recall, this is a correct statement. We have seen in the discussion of community policing that Mukkadam or Sarpanch, they were village headmen, but they also used to work as police officer. The sixth statement is, Constitution of India provides for the provision of overseas citizens of India. You should get this in 2 seconds. This is incorrect statement. There is no direct or elaborate provisions on overseas citizens of India in the articles 5 to 11 that concerns with citizenship. But however, the Constitution of India empowers the Parliament to come up with legislation concerning citizenship. And that is how the provisions of overseas citizens of India have been brought in the Citizenship Act 1955. The last statement, if the applicant had ever been a citizen of Pakistan, Bangladesh, Iraq, Nepal, Bhutan or Sri Lanka, then he or she will not be eligible to be registered as OCI. Actually, this criteria was there for PIO, person of Indian origin. But in OCI, the bar is only against two nation citizenship, Pakistan and Bangladesh. And that makes this statement incorrect. Now it's time you attempt question for the day. Answer to yesterday's question of the day has been given on your screen. Attempt today's question of the day, write your answer in the comment section, have some fruitful discussion, and also attempt the DNS quiz on the eLearn platform. I hope it was a fruitful session. Goodbye. Take care.